everybody, my name is Tanya and today I want to talk a little bit about TBR jars. So about a year ago I made a video about all of my TBR jars, and yes, all of them, because I have a lot of TBR jars for kind of different little things, and I haven't been using them. And so this past year, Booktube has been dictating my reading in a lot of ways. There are still a lot of things that I'm reading outside the influence of Booktube, but there are the things that I want to read, and then there are all the things that have kind of come from Booktube, all the buddy reads and the different goals and things, and that's left me very little time for that spontaneity of choosing something, randomly from a TBR jar. I consistently use my Booktube Recommends TBR jar throughout the year to pick which book I would be reading for that next month. But other than that, I don't think I used any of my TBR jars in 2015. So I'll link the video from last year where I spoke about the TBR jars that I have down below. But in that video I talk about a jar that I created probably 2 years ago now, and that is a jar called Tanya's Shortlist. And at that time I'd made a list of things that had bothered me, that I hadn't read, and that I really, really wanted to read. And then I think in 2014 I'd picked one thing from the list, out of the jar, and then I got completely sidetracked by Booktube. And I went through it at the end of last year when I filmed this video and kind of tipped everything out and saw, went through it, and as it turned out I managed to read 8 things from this jar without actually picking out of it. And so I have recently come across this jar again. I hadn't really been thinking about it at all, but I thought it would be interesting to kind of go through again to see if there are any more that I've read from this list, if my priorities have changed, if there are things in here that I don't really care about reading at all anymore, or it might remind me of some things that, yes, I really, really need to get to that. And it's interesting because this is a list that I made pre-Booktube, like totally pre-Booktube, so it's not going to be at all influenced by what's happened in the last 2 years, by the books that I see on my shelves now and go, I really, really need to get to that because such and such loves it, or everybody's been reading it and I really want to do. This is kind of a glimpse at pre-Booktube Tanya, and I wonder how much I've changed. So, it's been that long, I can't even open it. There we go. Got in. It was foiled by the jar. And I've got a little bowl, so we'll chuck everything in here. I don't know how many things are in here, but let's just get into it. Okay, so the first thing that's in here I still really, really want to get to really soon, and even more now because more books in the series have come out, and that is William Shakespeare's Star Wars by Ian Dosha. And as you can see, I've got a little feature shelf of that right here. This is William Shakespeare's Star Wars at the top, and then the subsequent books that have come out. So there's the original trilogy, and then the prequel trilogy have all been done in the style of Shakespeare, and I don't know why I've not read these yet, so I am definitely putting this back in my shortlist jar, and hopefully I can read them soon. Okay, so the next book that's in here is Carrie by Stephen King, and I have not read that. I still would like to get to that. I've read a couple of books by Stephen King in the past. I don't read horror all that often, but Carrie in particular, for some reason, is something that I feel like I really want to read, and it is also going back in the jar. Next we have something that I have read in this past year, and this is The Chrysalids by John Wyndham. I read this during a readathon, I can't remember which one, during 2015. I want to read a whole bunch more John Wyndham, so there are definitely more John Wyndhams that I could put in this list, but The Chrysalids was the one that I wanted to get to next, and I have achieved that, so that one doesn't have to go back in the jar because that one has been read. Next up I have The Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer. This is exactly as it stands. In the last check-in I did with this list, I read the Odyssey as part of Jean from Jean Bookish Thoughts classical read-along in 2014, and I still haven't got to the Iliad, so that's going back in the jar. So next up I have On the Beach by Neville Shute, which is something that I still really, really, really want to read. This one is a tale of, is it nuclear fallout? But basically what happens when we bomb the crap out of each other and, ruin the world, and Australia is kind of the last place that it's spreading to, or I don't know, I'm not explaining this well at all, but this is something that I really wanted to read for a long time, and I can see it just up here in these new bookshelves. I can see it now, so hopefully I will read this soon. This is definitely still going back in the jar. Alright, next we have The Comic Box by Adrian Sterling. This is another one that I did read. Adrian Sterling, as I've spoken about before, was my English teacher in years 7, 9 and 11 at high school, and he has since gone on to publish a couple of YA books. This one I read again during a readathon. I read during the Underhyped Reads readathon at the start of last year, so this one doesn't have to go back in the jar because I have read it. Next up we have The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I don't have any specific reasons why I want to read this one, just it's one of those books that everybody seems to think you should read. I've heard very mixed things about it in terms of people who love it and people who absolutely loathe it. I've read a couple of Paulo Coelho books in the past and I've enjoyed them. So I will leave this in my shortlist jar for now, but I'm not in any particular hurry to get to it. So next up I have A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. This one I've spoken about many times in that I've tried to put on TBRs as well to try and read as a book that I missed as a child. I saw the movie, loved The Secret Garden, but never got to A Little Princess. Just recently, Erica from Erica Rabel has read this one during a readathon and decided that, young Erica would have loved it, older Erica, meh. So I am interested to see where I fall with this one and whether I enjoy it or not. I'm not feeling the same amount of need, at the moment to say I really must get to this soon, but it can stay in the jar for now. Next, there is The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. So this is something that I've never got around to reading. I've read the first 3, I think, it's probably a long time ago now, but in adult life, not as a child. And again, it's something that, it's your big names, like your big names of classic children's books that I've not got around to. I've heard all kinds of mixed things about them. I'm in no great hurry, but it's still something that I would like to be able to say that I've read the full Chronicles of Narnia someday, so for now it can stay in the jar. Okay, then we have The Circus of Adventure by Enid Blyton. This is another children's one that I managed to miss out on. I loved the Adventure series by Enid Blyton growing up. I just absolutely adored them. But we never actually owned this one, which I think is like the 7th book of 8 or something like that. So I would like to do a full reread of the Adventure series by Enid Blyton at some point in time and finally read The Circus of Adventure, so I guess this is staying in the list. Next up I have Temeraire by Naomi Novik, and here I've written 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because I own the first 5 books in the series. I did read the first book as a buddy read with Yamini from The Skeptical Reader and Nicole from Talkerbrain last year, and I really enjoyed it. I would like to go on and read the others. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as I had been hoping, and yeah, I would like to go on and reread the others, but I'm not in any great hurry, so I think I might take this one out of the jar for now. The fact that I've read the first one, that kind of satisfies that real urge to have read them. So I think I'll kind of hang tight and see what happens with the later books in the series at another time. Then we have Blindness by Jose Saramago. This is another one that I still really, really want to read. I've read a couple of books by Jose Saramago in the past, and I find him a really interesting author. He is a Portuguese writer, and basically he writes without any kind of punctuation, which I find incredibly interesting. And the story behind this one is when basically everybody in the world goes blind and how quickly society just crumbles, basically. And so in that kind of aspect, it's very similar to Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. Definitely still want to read this one very soon. Next up we have The Over Newton Chronicles by Isabel Carmody, and I've written 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because they're the ones I've owned. The 6th and final book in this series has fairly recently been released, so this would be the perfect time to read these. The Over Newton series is a young adult fantasy series that was written by an Australian author, Isabel Carmody, and the first couple of books are quite small and then they get massive, and that's probably what's held me back. But like I said, now that all of them have been released, I will have to pick up the 6th book, and this is definitely staying in the TBR jar. Next up I have The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. This is the first book in the Percy Jackson series. I don't know what I feel about this. This was kind of probably in a stage that I was reading a bit more YA. I do own The Lightning Thief. I've heard really great things about it. Yeah, I don't know whether I want to keep this one or not. I've been very much away from young adult for quite a while now. I might leave this one out of the jar, but I would still like to read it at some point in time. Next up I have The Salmon of Doubt by Douglas Adams. Salmon of Doubt, I think, is a book put together of some of his short stories and an unfinished 3rd book in the Dirk Gently series, I think is how it goes. Basically, I've read the 5 parts of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy trilogy and the 2 books of the Dirk Gently series, and this is the last book of his that I own that I have not read, and as I said, I think it's just like an unfinished part of a book and then some other writings to go along with it. But I adore Douglas Adams. I think he is hilarious, so I would definitely like to get to this one soon. It can stay in the jar. Next is The Colour of Magic by Terry Pratchett. This is one I have read. I have been meaning for a very long time to read The Discworld series. I did read it last year, and then quite soon after, unfortunately, Terry Pratchett passed away, and I quite enjoyed it. I have heard that it gets better and better and better. I would like to read some more, but this one has been checked off, so it doesn't have to go back in the jar. Next up, and this is something that's completely out of character really for me, and this is the Lux series by Anna Godwinson. Again, this is one that I read the first 2 books of, I think, when I was a bit more of a YA reader, and I own all 4 books in the series, and I, had wanted to finish them at some point just to say I'd like to. Complete guilty pleasure, I guess. I think it gives me the eye rolls more than anything, and I would like to finish them at some point. I don't know that I'm in any great hurry, so maybe it doesn't have to go in the shortlist either, but that's amusing. And next is something that definitely can stay in the shortlist, and that is Sherlock Holmes 7, 8, and 9 by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I've read, obviously, books 1 through 6 of the Sherlock Holmes kind of world, and have still got a few volumes left to go. I would like to have read all of the Sherlock Holmes novels and stories, so that will definitely stay in the shortlist. Next up, we've got another YA choice, and this is The Ugly series by Scott Westerfeld. I read the first book several years ago now and have intended on carrying on. Have never carried on. Again, I don't know whether I'm feeling this right at the moment, so I might take it out of the jar as well. It's one of those one days, yes, I'd like to, but I'm just being very much away from young adult at the moment, and I'm happy with that. So it can stay on my shelf here, and I will pick it up at some point, but I don't think I need the TBR jar to tell me to, because I think I need to be in the mood for it. And if I'm taking it out of a TBR jar at some point in time, if I ever use this jar as it's intended to be used, then I will pull it at a time that I probably won't feel like it. So I will wait until I feel the urge to read these and then pick them up. And then the last one is Beauty Queens by Liv Bray. So another young adult choice. This one I'm still more interested in reading, I think, so I might leave this one in. Although again, like I said, if it's a mood choice for young adult, then maybe taking it out of TBR jar isn't the best. But I might leave this one in, because out of all the young adult choices that I've kind of pulled out, this is the one that I'm still more interested in. So yes, I will see how it goes. It's kind of, a plane load of, beauty queens are stranded on a desert island and all Helen's shoes. So what's not to love about that? Okay, so there is an unspecified amount still in the jar. I probably should count these, but anyway, it's been decreased. There's probably a lot of things that I could put in this jar that I am dying to read at the current time that's not covered by this, but it is interesting to kind of check back in on what past Tanya really wanted to read and whether current Tanya agrees with that. So that's kind of what's left in my shortlist jar. I'm not going to set myself a quota to read from this list or to try and draw from the jar at any point in time, or any of my TBR jars, because as I said, I've been trying to steer clear of actual reading goals this year. But if I can start throwing in some TBR jar choices because I've got more time, because I'm kind of calming down on everything, then that would be great. We'll just see how it goes. But if you've got a TBR jar, let me know down in the comments what you use them for, and if you've got any questions about any of my jars, as always, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!